I'll catch you up in a bit in my garage where we'll test out the tools, and then we'll meet in my shed because I've got something else that I took in last night. It's literally filled up my back seat, so I had to take it in so it wouldn't be left on display. Right, so what was on the back seat? I didn't want to leave in the car last night. This start charger. We're going to have a go in a minute, see if we can get it working, see if it does work. If it does work, I shall probably give it away to somebody. They're a bit heavy duty, should we say. They're a bit like a sledgehammer. If you think that you've got a normal hammer that charges a battery, these are like a sledgehammer. They stick in high voltage, loads of amps. Usually these things, you wouldn't want to leave a battery on charge for more than 10-20 minutes at the very most. These things pump in loads of energy, loads of volts, loads of amps. This one is charge at 12 volt, 30 amps. Yeah, and it'll probably be sticking in like full on 15 volts straight away, whereas your little battery charger, like this little one here, this is a little trickle charger, that's 1.5 amps. It only puts out 12.8 volts. It's good for trickle charging your battery, just offsetting its losses when it sits. That's the sort of thing you'd use in your garage of a car when it's in storage over the winter. This is the sort of thing you use to get a car started quick. It's got a start function as well, which pumps out 180 amps, which is an awful lot. It's 6 times as much as its charge. You put it on start when you want to jump start the car immediately. No charging, no nothing. But say one of these will charge a battery in about 10 minutes, which is not good for the battery. I've boiled batteries with these. You can literally, if you put these on maximum charge, you can sit there and hear the acid in the battery boiling. They're not good for a battery, but they're good for a garage where you need to get a car started quickly. Maybe you've got an half-dead battery you want to charge up. You don't want to spend 24 hours charging up an half-dead battery just to use it for 5 minutes. This is what you use. So we'll get onto it, we'll have a little fiddle, see what we can find out. See you in a bit. Right, so we've got a new fuse in it. I've taken the fuse out of my other battery charger. Let's put this little cap back on. I don't normally put these little caps back on if I'm just testing fuses, but I'm sure there's somebody out there who's going to bitch and moan about it. So, we'll plug it in, make sure it's turned off, turn the switch on, turn the power switch on, and it works. And it's charging. It's charging way too much for that little battery up there. If I switch it up, you can hear it boiling. Yeah, it's a bit too much for that little battery. I don't want to ruin that little battery because that little battery is, I think it was, the pair of them was £160 for a little disability scooter. So that would seem to be the problem. The fuse was blown. Let's get a bigger car battery. Put it up here. Pick up the stuff we keep dropping on the floor. That's a positive. That's a negative. Switch her on. We'll put her on minimum. And that is putting in, how many amps is that? I can't see. Yeah, once again, no reading glasses. There's somewhere in the back of my camper van. I'm just putting that at 0 amps. If I switch it up to 2, it's 10 amps. Which is a fair old chunk. $20 amps. Well, at least it's not boiling. Right, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch that off for now, and I'm going to get my test meter in Just make sure it is putting out 12 volts or 13 or 14 volts and it's not going wild. Right, as you can see, the charge of the battery is 12.5. It's been sitting for a couple of months. Let's turn the charger on. Straight up to 14.3, 14.4. So that is on setting minimum and number 1. That's quite a high. They are very vicious, these charge jumpers. You wouldn't want to put a battery on charge for very long. Let's put it on number 2. Cool, dear me. 15 volts. No wonder it boils batteries. So, if you're going to use this in your garage, you wouldn't want to use it on more than minimum number 1, to be honest. What's maximum number 1? 15.8 volts. Minimum number 2 is 15. Let's put it up to maximum. That's like 16 volts. Yeah, I'm not going to leave that on there for very long. That's a lot of voltage to be putting in a 12 volt battery. A lot of voltage. These things are vicious. You can quite easily fry a battery. Quite easily fry a battery with that sort of voltage. Personally, well, I would like a charger that puts out about 14.4 at the most. 14.8 for a smart charger, but then you've got to have the correct battery to go with it. So, although this start charger works, it's a vicious bit of kit and puts out an awful lot of voltage. An awful lot of voltage. Max charge. Well, it says charge at 12 volt, but obviously you don't charge a 12 volt battery at 12 volt, you charge it at 13, 14 volts. Even my solar system will get up to 13, 14, 14.4 I think my solar charge goes up to. This is 14.7. That's a big old chunk of charge to put into a battery. You wouldn't want to be using this to charge a battery overnight. You want to use this if you want to charge a battery in sort of half an hour, you know. In fact I'm going to switch it off because I don't want to ruin this battery. Right, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to plug in my little brand new but very old, again found it in the scrap, brand new in the box, Gunston automatic battery charger, and we'll have a check and see what sort of voltage that puts out. Give me 5 minutes and I'll get back to you. Right, so I've got my little Gunston's 12 volt automatic battery charger plugged in now, and as you'll see, excuse the sniffing, my fever's playing up something rotten. Every time the air gets very damp it plays up. 14.2 volts. That's a much nicer way of charging a battery, not the 14.8 that this bloody thing was throwing into it, or there's definitely not the 16 volts it was throwing into it on a fast charge. I'd hate to see what sort of voltage it pumps out when you put it onto start instead of charge. It says here 180 amps when it's in start, 30 amps when it's in charge. Well, cool, Bennett. You'd best turn this on to start and then try starting your car, otherwise you're going to blow your battery up with this thing. I've seen lots of batteries killed by these things. There you go, they are what they are. They're big, they're brutish, and if you're not careful, even on the lowest setting, I wouldn't leave a battery on charge with this more than about 10-15 minutes. It's going to start boiling inside. You didn't hear it earlier, but when I did that test with that, I could hear it boiling inside, and that was on the lowest setting. It's a very small battery, you know, to be fair. This battery didn't start boiling until I turned it up to sort of 16 volts, but you'd expect it to boil at 16 volts with the amount of energy going through it. But there you go, with a nice little car battery charger, pushing out under 1 amp now at 14.2 volts. Nice gentle way of charging your battery. Sledgehammer of a battery charger. It's more of a starter than a charger. Yes, it'll charge a car battery, but as I say, it'll take about 10 minutes, which means it's going to pump loads of power into it. It's no good to me. As I say, it's a bit heavy-handed for what I do. If I still had my garage, I used to have one, so I've blown up batteries, I've boiled batteries with it. It's an emergency bit of kit. you're much better off giving it a 24-hour trickle charge and then letting a battery rest for 24 hours to test it, rather than just pumping 10 minutes worth of 16 volts at 30 amps through it. Not going to do it a lot of good. Anyway, we'll find out in a minute. Ta-da.